Hello and welcome to my workshop. So today we're going to be getting into the world of no prep drag racing. So I picked up a kit here. I have a whole load of parts, some new and some used, and enough to get me started. The only thing I don't have is a body. I'm going to wait till I get the kit put together and pick a body that will go with the kit I end up with, and then we'll see if we can give this stuff a try. Alright, let's get started. So you'll open up the kit here. You really can see how well everything's packaged and placed out in the different bags to kind of help you through the process. You don't have to open everything up at once. And one of the things I learned off watching other people on YouTube, especially model builders, is the technique of kerning, and that is pushing all of your like parts into rows. And especially in building these kits, it just makes the process go so much smoother. You do put a little bit of time up front sorting out all of your parts, but it does a couple things. It gives you familiarity with your parts you're looking at, as well as when you're going to pull those parts, you can just kind of zip through, and it really is more fun to do it this way. At least it is for me. We're just kind of finishing up with the front, I guess, bulkhead here, and which pulling out this pan, really nice, well-made pan, well thought out. There's a lot of adjustability in this, and right off the bat, I realized I'm gonna basically just try to follow the follow the basic guidelines in the book, which kind of I think just puts it right down the middle. But even just putting that front bulkhead on, there's adjustability, whether I think it's 25 or 30 degrees, and I have no idea what any of that means, so I just kind of gonna put it together, play with it, and then I'm sure as time goes on I'll make changes and kind of make improvements. So I'm using an old servo I had. I'm sure it pulled out of a crawler somewhere, but it's still in good shape, so figured I'd put it in here. It is interesting seeing the way that they have the linkage set up for that servo. It gives me ideas. You might be able to use some of that in crawlers. I'm not quite sure, but gives you some ideas if you get in a bind. Now this is a carbon fiber piece in the front, which is basically your shock tower and kind of the front whole structure. So just kind of putting that together, and it sandwiches together all the plastic pieces. So this is where deviate from the kit, and so the concept of this no prep is you're using a short course length truck with a buggy width arm. So there I'm putting on the buggy width arms and getting all of the the pieces, the knuckles and such, C-hubs put all together for that. It is kind of weird to see something that doesn't have a shaft to come out because I'm so used to four-wheel drive, but I guess it does make it where it's not quite as complex, so that part's nice at least. And there really is a ton of adjustability in this, so I'm gonna be curious to see how I change this thing over time, or not. It may just work good enough. I'm not really sure how much I'll get into this no prep, but I'll probably be making adjustments as I understand it. I figure it's better to get out there and run it and then try it out and go from there, instead of trying to theorize all this stuff and you really have no idea what you're doing. Well, I haven't had to follow the instructions on a build this closely in a long time. This is somewhat of a mind-boggling amount of adjustability. I'm kind of just setting it up where the book says, and kind of then realizing that it's going to be a lot of work to tune this thing in. I guess it'll be a lot of fun to that, but just a lot to learn. So far I have most of the front end put together. I think, you know, what I ended up doing was skipping some of the steps and modifying some of the others. So, you know, obviously I put on the buggy width arms onto this short course chassis here. I left off the front bumpers and the side, I guess they're bumpers on the side, and but other than that, it's pretty much just following the instructions as it goes, and it's all, you know, it's coming together really nicely. I mean, the one thing I can say is this is a very nice kit. You know, Team Associate has done a really good job putting this thing together. The instructions are very good, and just got to follow them through. So, all right, let's continue on. I think I'll get the rear as the next step, and then we'll start getting into this thing looking like a dragster. So the rear is a little bit different than the front, and it obviously, you know, has a transmission, but even the way they have the setup. So there's these little inserts, and depending on the insert you pick and the way you place that insert in, it will change that the angle of the pivot point for that rear arm. And so one of the things I found out, you know, you can't quite get to 0, but it's a little bit of a toe in the rear. So here is just taking all these little ball bearings for the building up the transmission, and get a little bit of the grease that's supplied, and getting all these little thrust washers and bearings and everything put together. So I just figured it'd be the easiest thing is I just dumped the parts right into the grease, mushed them around, and pulled them out with some tweezers, and that seemed to work pretty good to get this stuff. Hopefully I'd never have to work on this thing out in the field, because I couldn't imagine trying to take this thing apart. It would just be a nightmare. So this is pretty much, if you break it, you bring it home, work on it. You know, crawlers are nice. You can kind of do some stuff out on the rocks, but man, one of these little balls fall out and you're done. So here is dropping in the main gear with the bearings, and even with building the transmission, you have adjustability, whether or not you move that gear up and down. That I'll probably will change, because it will give me a little bit better angle for my drive shafts, now that I have the, you know, when I end up lowering the car. This is the point, you're trying to make sure you don't get the wrong screw in, because, you know, some of these screws are very specific in length, and you know, if you put the wrong one in, a short one's not the problem, but one that's too long, you'll end up blowing out the back side of the case or doing some damage to it. So you really want to take your time and measure those out. To be quite honest, it's been a long time since I've fooled with a slipper clutch. My standard thing is to do is to lock those out one way or another, and you know, just trying to figure out how I wanted to get this together. And it's a little bit different design, but it's neat. I like the, you know, it was fun to see this and kind of play with something different than what I've been used to for so long. And just like the front, the rear has this really thick carbon fiber brace, which is the main structure for the shocks and the body posts and such. So now the rear is pretty close to being finished up. I still got a couple little odds and ends to do, and you know, a little more complicated in the front. You're building the transmission, and you know, it's a pretty interesting design with the slipper clutch and everything. Somewhat tricky getting the slipper pads on. I wasn't sure if I should glue those on or not. I didn't know how much the slipper would be used in these kind of vehicles. I mean, in a crawler, I typically just lock that out, or either, you know, crank the spring down just as far as you could actually go. But all in all, it turned out really nice, and you know, it's coming together about as good as I can expect. All right, still a lot more to go. I'm having a great time putting this kit together. It's a lot of fun, and but let's just get back to it. So here, very similar to the front. You know, yeah, the difference with the drive shaft did come through, but just getting the knuckles and the C hubs and all the, you know, the components put in the for the rear. So the one thing I did figure out with those drive shafts, I ended up having to mismatch parts between the kit and the aftermarket drive shafts I got, so to make everything work. I really wasn't sure if I got the right thing, but I ended up getting what I wanted, the right length for the shaft, and the ends that go through and attach to the wheel. That all remains the same as it was for the kit, so it all worked out. Yeah, this is really where it starts to come together, getting all the turnbuckles and the steering and everything together. Now, these shocks, they went together pretty nicely, and no complaints here. You know, I think I was putting these together with the realization that I was going to make some kind of a change in the future, and you know, I've seen some people that take and get some more front shocks for the rear. I figured I would see if what I had laying around, maybe I had something that would work, and but I figured I would just go ahead and get the shocks built as per the kit, get them on, and then that will give me a starting point. I can go from there. So with the exception of the bumpers and the side rails, I've pretty much just built this car as the instructions called out, and obviously it sits way too high. I'm going to do something with the shocks, front and rear, probably replace them with something. I'm going to look through my bin and see what I can find. And you know, I still got to get the electronics on there. I still got to get the wheels and tires aligned. Everything is just kind of thrown in and close. And I figure, you know, once I get the ride height down a little bit more, I'll have to come back in and make some adjustments anyway. So you know, just a good starting place, and just continue on with that and see where we can go. Okay, so here I'm getting ready to put on this 3D printed part, and so this is designed to go on the Team Associated chassis here, specific for the SC 6.1, which is what I have. But then it is able to bolt up to the Wheelie Bar that's made for the Slash, which are the more common ones. And so this is the Wheelie Bar I went with, STRC. You know, it's I'm not sure if it's the best, but it was a reasonable price. It was aluminum. It's actually pretty nice design and quality. It feels really good. It has the ball bearings at the end, so yeah, I'm really happy with this thing. We'll see how well it works, but for now I figured I'd give it a try. Okay, so with the exception of probably hours of tuning, I am pretty well done with I guess we'll call it the first phase of this no prep drag car build. I'm very happy with how this thing turned out. You know, Lexan bodies are not my thing, and so it's a bit of a stretch for me to do this, but you know, I did my best. Painted you know, with 3 colors: the red on top, gray on the bottom, with a yellow stripe down the center. I think it's actually mustard color. I went with a chrome trim around the front, chrome front and rear bumpers, and didn't put all the stickers on, but put a fair number of them on. And then over the top sprayed a clear matte color over the top, so just toned down that real shiny look of the you know, the plastic gives, and it looks a little more realistic. Ended up having to make a new mount in the front to get the front end lowered, but I'm really happy with how that looks. I mean, the tire really tucks under there nice. It's got a little bit of a rake toward the front. The back tire sits in there well. The wing on the back I think turned out pretty good, and I ended up just bolting that on with some scale hardware along the back. Yeah, I got this nice wheelie bar. It's made for a Slash, but it's modified with a, you know, the 3D printed part from Shapeways to get this thing bolted on. And you know, the rear end is so long that really only a little small bit of the wheelie bar sticks out of the back, which I think looks really nice on there. So, you know, really excited to get this thing out and test it out. I guess you call them test hits. Again, still learning all this new lingo for drag racing, but getting really excited, and a lot of other things going on. But until then, we'll see you on the rocks.